anybody I haven't asked yet? Anyone have a question that I haven't asked yet? And then I'll give, yes, sir.
If you're a post place, does that cover you for, you know, all the knives, the batons, everything? Or do you have to like specify that's what it is?
That's a really good question. And I had the answer to that about a month ago, and now I can't recall exactly what I'd recommend doing is take a look at the posted signs that the city came out with and just copy those exactly. Because the language, I think they actually, I think they actually specify what you're not allowed to bring in. So that's what I'd recommend doing. Just look at, because the city attorney looked at it very carefully, and so I'd just say go to a public building, like a MPS building or a City of Milwaukee building or a courthouse. Look at those signs and then copy those.
Right.
Yep. I'm sorry. Yes. And then
you mentioned about a knife. Is there a certain length or size of the knife that you can?
If you have a permit,
or the club also.
If you have a permit, it doesn't matter. If you don't have a permit, the same rule applies, and that is, was it 3 inches?
3 inches.
Yeah, about 3 inches.
What about a club? Is that a bat also or no?
I think it could be.
Because they've got bat stuff.
Yeah, I think it could be. They don't specify club, so I think it could be. I think it's really intended for like batons, expandable batons, things like that nowadays. But
because I see the
they say
kids
club
over in my neighborhood where they have little small bats that swing at each other on the bus stop.
Like an old billy club almost. Yeah. So yes, ma'am.
So when you were talking about only for protecting your life, if someone comes into your house with a gun, you assume it's loaded. Do you assume that you can shoot them because they're pointing it at you?
Well, Wisconsin also enacted what's called the Castle Doctrine this year as well. And that basically says that there will be a presumption that if somebody is unlawfully entering your house, that you're justified in using force against that person. Okay? So that changed as well. I personally don't agree with that, and I don't agree. I don't agree for a very practical reason, and that is the state of the law before that still allowed people to do exactly that, but it always required that they act reasonably, and the presumption would be that they had to demonstrate that they acted reasonably in those circumstances. All that's changed is it's kind of shifted the burden now. Now there's a presumption that if someone is unlawfully entering your house, that the presumption is that you're acting reasonably if you use a firearm to defend yourself. So that's the basic change in the law right there. It's not major. I just thought that was a law in search of a problem. The reality is that almost, I can't think of a single example where the police department has come in and said, somebody was confronted with an armed burglar, so they shot him, and I want you to charge that person for shooting the armed burglar. And I can't think of a single case that we ever issued against somebody like that with the existing law. So again, it's a law, and it's really not going to change a whole lot.
Have you ever had a case where you've had somebody enter and they don't have a weapon with theirs?
Sure. Yeah. In fact, one of them that got a fairly large amount of attention was the junkyard security guard that used a firearm. And because of the circumstance, fact-by-fact circumstances, we believe that was an unreasonable use of force under the circumstances, and we charged it and convicted him. And a lot of people didn't agree with us on that decision. We thought it was the right thing based on all the facts and circumstances that we had at the time. That he was aware that the person was not armed, and we didn't find his story that he only shot up in the air to be particularly credible. We thought that he intentionally aimed at the unarmed person, and so that's why we elected to charge it and pursued it as we did. Question in the back.
Yeah, 2 questions. You would consider carry for the postal location. Do you have to register that you're posting or anything like that? Or?
You do not. No, to my knowledge, that there is not a registry available. I think what the intent behind it is that the store owner, the homeowner, the property owner does that to inform their customers that they don't want people with concealed weapons on the premises. If somebody violates that, the law clearly states that you have to give the person the opportunity to leave, and if they don't do it at that point in time, you can call the police, and then the police are authorized, even if they're a permittee, to come and intervene. And so that's the way it works, but there's not like a central database of people that, the police would automatically know that you're a posted place.
And then the second one was the castle doctor you mentioned. Does that include like detached garages as well? Other homes have detached garages.
That's a good question, and I think the answer is yes. And that's simply because the very definition of your premises includes your detached garage.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
I have a question. Like if you're a business owner and you have a sign posting on the city weapons, can you as the owner have a weapon?
Yes. Now that was true. That was the case that really led to the changes in our law. That was State versus Hamden. Mr. Hamden was a grocery store owner who had a concealed weapon underneath the counter of his business. And during the course of investigating a different crime, the officers recovered that firearm, and it was probably unwisely charged by the DA's office at the time against my strong objections, and it resulted in a Supreme Court decision that basically said, "Hey, look, Wisconsin, you have to change your concealed carry law." But it still took. That was a 2002 decision, and it was 2011 before we changed the law. So, but the reality is, out of that Hamden case, the ruling was that if you were in your home or business, you could carry a concealed weapon even without a permit. Yes, sir.
How you doing? With that premises order, like if you've got a sign up, that also includes, like I know I go to the VA for my treatments and stuff, and they have warned a lot of the people too, do not bring them on the property, period. You can't come into the parking lot, take it out, put it in your car, lock it in a little car safe or anything. So that's true with, I mean, like Aldi's or any of those places, correct? Or wherever you go.
It's something to be aware of. That's exactly right. And you have to remember, federal property means federal laws. And Wisconsin law doesn't trump federal law. So you have to be aware of where you go and the locations that you're allowed to and not allowed to. So there's a lot of additional responsibilities that come with being a concealed weapon permittee. And you know what? I'm actually confident, and I've always been confident, that 99% of the people that get concealed carry permits are going to be responsible gun owners, like they always have been. I'm not concerned about that. I'm more concerned about, if we were going to do this, why didn't we take the opportunity to make sure the people that shouldn't be carrying weapons under any circumstances didn't face even a greater penalty for carrying a concealed weapon? Because then that would have allowed police officers to still use the exact same skills and techniques that they had developed over 100 years of the previous law. And that means that if they saw somebody, they could presume that person was not a permittee, and they could take certain actions that were consistent. And if it turned out the person was permitted, no problem. You say, "Thank you very much, sorry about that, go about your business." Now there's just that short ambiguity in the encounter. And again, in my experience, of responding to many of these lethal use of force incidents, split seconds are all the difference in the world. It's just all the difference in the world. The difference between a police officer being alive and the person that was being threatened being alive has often come down to a literally split-second decision by that police officer whether they should use force or not. And I don't think we should do anything that creates hesitation when we're doing that. That's my only point on it. Yes, sir.
Hopefully we can answer this. We got the summer coming up, entertainment venues, Summerfest, County Stadium. What are we going to do? How are the laws going to be affected there? We have lots of people walking into a place where they should be allowed to carry a weapon if they need to protect themselves, but you also have a lot of innocent citizens who don't want any firearms in that area. So, well,
see now, and again, that's one of the laws that I think should have been tweaked. For example, is that even with a permit, I think the tolerance for alcohol, for example, should have been either 0 or 0.02. That even if you had a permit, you shouldn't be drinking alcohol under any circumstances. So that's another tweak that we have. But in short answer to your question, so I've met with the festival groups and I've discussed this. The way the law is written is that you're allowed to post the area for no concealed weapons, but it has to be an area that can be contained. In other words, it has to be a secured area, which creates some problems. Some areas like Summerfest, I think, have already been statutorily exempted. In other words, you just can't bring a weapon into that location. I don't know if they did it to Miller Park yet. Lambeau Field, they didn't. So the Green Bay Police Department and Brown County Sheriff are having to spend a lot of time and energy making sure that people don't go into that location with firearms. So
State Fair?
State Fair, I believe, is also exempt. In other words, is a prohibited location. I'll have to double check. I know for a fact, I'm pretty certain it is State Fair and Summerfest were included in the law. But we're a festival town, right? I mean, so many of you, if you're a member of a Block Watch Club, I suspect that you're also pretty active in other civil activities related to your churches and other pro-social groups. And this is a real problem that people are concerned about. Is how do you raise money for your church? Well, you hold a festival. Sometimes part of that festival involves selling beer and wine at the festival, and you don't really want people coming into that location with concealed weapons. So it has to be posted, and it has to be a secured area, and that's a primary issue right there. And if people come in, you have to give them the opportunity to leave. If they don't, then if you have your own private security, they can take action, or you can call the police and they can take action. But I think of like, even practical, South Shore Frolics, for example. That's right up against the lakefront. It's surrounded by a county park. So there's different rules that apply to county parks. And quite frankly, who's responsible for security there? Is it South Shore Frolics themselves? Is it the Sheriff's Department? Is it the Police Department? How do you actually secure that entire area, right? How do you make that a secure area? It's gonna cause some problems, and we're gonna have to just work our way through them.
I have an apartment building. Let's say there's a school across the street. What are the laws with that?
The law says that you can't knowingly possess a firearm within 1,000 feet of a school unless you're in your residential property. So you can still possess a firearm in your residential property even if that's within 1,000 feet of the school. So it's exempted. It's exempted in that respect now. So you're fine. In other words, you're not going to be in violation of the law for having a firearm in your home within 1,000 feet of a school.
That includes your car?
Yes, that would include your car as well. Yes, ma'am.
Are there any amendments or tweaks being worked on right now?
Yeah, again, with the input of the Milwaukee Police Department, the City Attorney's Office, and our office, we've proposed, and with the County Executive's Office and other members of the community, we've actually proposed to Senator Darling and the Joint Finance Committee a set package that we'd like to see some reform on. I have been told by the Attorney General that he's going to fight for those. Because, quite frankly, he's the one responsible for issuing these permits. And the former Assistant Police Chief, Brian O'Keefe, is the one who's responsible for implementing these. So you've got some pretty common sense law enforcement people that know that there's some work to be done on this. Okay, so we're going to keep fighting. My goal is just to have that perfect balance again, where people's absolute right to possess a firearm is respected. At the same time, law enforcement can use the laws appropriately to identify the people that are going to use guns to threaten our safety, and that they can take proactive measures to stop those things from happening before a tragedy occurs. So that's the balance we're looking for, and I think with those tweaks in the law that we can get there.
Okay, sir.
Talk too long, sorry.
No, I just wanted to thank you. I know you're pressed for time. We don't want to hold you too long. But you guys want to give him a hand? I know you're going to have to appreciate you coming out and addressing it, because I'm pretty sure everybody had questions.
No, thank you, Jerome. Thanks for all the work, Liz. Thanks for the work you do. And thank you all for being active members of our community. That's what we need, and that's really what we need. And we'll take on any challenges. We're going to meet them, and and we're going to be just fine. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. You don't want to take a cookie with you, sir?
No, I'm great. Thank you. Thank you. Have a great night.
Yeah, just a couple of things. I want to introduce my boss. He's leaving though. I guess he'll go catch.
No, I'm not